Welcome back to Tipping Point. I'm your host, Kara McKinney. The completely fair, not at all politically biased Attorney General of New York, our favorite, Letitia James, that's a joke, by the way, is now getting involved with the state's controversial concealed carry law. Last week, we discussed how a federal judge blocked parts of that law from going into effect while Gun Owners of America continue with their lawsuit challenging it in whole. The temporary restraining order affects some of the most odious aspects of that law, including the good moral character social media background checks and the gun-free zones within its fine print. But now, James, the AG, filed a motion just yesterday asking the court to appeal the decision, arguing that it's a public safety risk not to do so. She's seen the streets of New York anytime recently. Joining me now to discuss is journalist John Crump of AmmoLand, who's written extensively on the issue for that news site. So, John, thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great. So first, let me get your reaction quickly to the Attorney General of New York saying that last week's big win for Gun Owners of America is putting her communities in danger.
It's expected for her to say something like that. What a lot of people don't realize is the law just went into effect on September 1st. So GOA, they appealed today, or actually filed a motion against the stay, saying that the law's only been in effect for less than a month since she filed this. So nothing's actually changed. The community is not in any more danger. In fact, if you look at the Bruin decision says they can't use intermediate scrutiny, which is like public safety or anything like that. And that seems to be what they're doing.
No, that's exactly right. Of course, it's not that it's the career criminals who are running the streets that Democrats love. It's not them. It's these concealed carry permit holders. They're the real problem, as always, at least in leftist eyes. But of course, you've written about this issue extensively, as I mentioned just a moment ago. So the name of the case here, Antonyuk versus Hochul, Antonyuk being a Ukrainian immigrant. Can you tell us who was on both sides of the case?
Yeah, Antonyuk is a Ukrainian immigrant who moved to this country, got a concealed carry permit in New York, which is hard, but he got it. And with the CCIA going into effect, he actually lost rights after the Bruin decision because of New York's anti-gun law. And there's other plaintiffs in the case too. There is some people that intend to keep on carrying after the CCIA went into effect. Antioch, there was another case called Antioch versus Bruin. In that case, they found that Antioch didn't have standing because he was too law abiding and he wasn't going to break the law. This time, GOA went back in there with several other plaintiffs that planned to break the law, including the pastor.
Well, that's surprising. And also, I wanted to ask you on this. Some of the big victory from last week was the parts of the law that got blocked. The social media background checks is one example. The sensitive areas or gun-free zones, however you wanted to call it, those were some of the parts that now the Attorney General of New York, she's trying to get those reinstated. I think the temporary restraining order is supposed to go into effect tomorrow, this Wednesday. Can you list for us some of what the court struck down last week and the parts they upheld and why?
Yeah, they struck down the good moral character clause because that was just an analog for the proper cause. Before Bruin, you had to show proper cause to carry a gun, but that was struck down, so they just changed the name. The social media was struck down because the judge ruled giving over your social media to the state is a violation of your free speech or your First Amendment rights. Then they also struck down restricted places, which are businesses that do not put a sign up saying guns are welcome. So if you went to the gas station, you could be breaking the law, or you went to a convenience store, you could be breaking the law. So that was knocked down. Also, they knocked down the ban on guns in Times Square. And Bruin said that you cannot ban guns in a place just because people gather there. And New York went ahead and banned guns where people gathered. The court did say that the New York could ban guns in polling places, schools, and government buildings, which we expected that they would, and they do that. But the majority of the law has been gutted.
And of course, that's great news to hear. And so, what comes next with Gun Owners of America, with some of the legal back and forth that we're seeing in New York right now? Where do we go from here?
Well, today they filed a motion to object to the stay request. So that was filed today. They will take that into consideration, but they're also going for a temporary and preliminary injunction, which is a little bit more long lasting than a temporary restraining order. This temporary restraining order was put in place on an emergency basis. So the preliminary injunction and temporary injunction will last a little bit longer. A preliminary injunction can last forever, so that is what they're going to go for. Then after that, I'm sure whoever loses will appeal to the circuit court. Then whoever loses there will appeal to the Supreme Court. So this case is not over by any stretch of the imagination. But right now, Gun Owners of America has a solid win, and hopefully the stay will get rejected and the TRO will go into effect.
Well, John, I really appreciate your updates. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much, Phil.